Hey legends, and welcome back to the least knowledgeable sim racing channel, where we're bringing you what's probably my most exciting online race to date, if not one of the most frustrating. Big props as always to Mike from Sim Racing 604 for hosting this league event at Imola on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and props to simracing.gp for allowing us content creators to host these competitions so easily. If you're interested in joining either Mike's or my community on simracing.gp, I'll have all the relevant links for you down below. Now to the fun stuff. Today, we had a scorching 45-minute race at Imola. The tarmac was a diabolical 38 degrees Celsius, about the temperature of a regular summer day here in Australia. Coincidentally, also the real-life air temperature at the time I did the race, so I can definitely say I was well immersed, if not completely drenched in sweat by the end. Given the heat and close racing at Imola, our tyres were on fire, lap times were down, but things were really interesting and slidey. Anyway, without spoiling too much, let's jump into the race. But before we do, be sure to check that you're subscribed to this channel for much more fun ACC racing content further in the year. Alright, so here we are for our last two attempts at qualifying. I've had a pretty bad attempt thus far. I'm not going to bother showing you a meager 143.2 due to me not warming up the tires correctly, traffic, you know, all of the aforementioned excuses. Anyway, this is make or break time. This is where I have to basically dial it all in and make it all happen. So I'm swinging wildly through T1 there, trying to constrain the rear end of this massive AMG. I'm a little bit worried because I thought I had left a lot of space in front of me, but all of these cars just appeared out of nowhere, so I'm not sure if they pulled out of the pits or what. Fortunately, the guy in front of me is Arius, one of the faster guys in the field, so I know he's not going to keep me up. But I am concerned about the guys further up. There's a bit of a train forming, and I'm going to need a lot of space to do my hot laps. So I'm aiming for a time in the high, maybe 141s, given my rate of preparation, the setup of the car. I'm not as prepared for this as I usually am for a race. I would have put in a little bit more work, but it is what it is. As long as I can get to my own personal pace, that'll be good. Unfortunately, I grabbed the curb too much on the outside, shoots me out wide. So I'll lose a lot of time at Aqua Minerale there. All the same, I'll see if I can make it up at the chicane one. Just ride straight over it, Camaro line. Yep, that worked really well. That worked pretty well.
On the left.
But I'm still losing time, unfortunately. One could say it probably worked too well. Braking hard now for the penultimate corners. I don't even know what's going to happen here, but I'm preparing myself for a run. Luckily, they've run off, so I'm clear. And
Car on the right. Clear on the right.
That's all, folks.
Light damage on the front of the car.
Absolutely murdered on the first of my last two proper qualifying laps. Looks like we'll have to settle for 5th position. I was about getting up to half a second up just before those turns, so even on that not so great first lap, I would have likely been in the top 3 by the looks of it. So yeah, it definitely cost me a position or two on the starting grid, but it is what it is, so we start in 5th now. Alright, so here we are at the tail end of our formation lap for this 45-minute scorcher race here at Imola.
Guys,
Still,
sure
it's not terrible. I mean, I ended up in 5th. My qualifying was absolutely woeful. I think had I been at pace, I would have been in pole position. I think the fastest quali time was in the mid to low 142s, which I should have been able to outpace, but I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda. If I could, I would have done it, so obviously my preparation just wasn't there, and as I try to work out this weird, bizarre hold you up speed thing, unfortunately lose the start, so we head down the straight. I've lost the run to the McLaren. I'm trying to create space for him here, so I'm just kind of leaving it good. And the car next to me just glitches out and completely spins out wide, so at this point, what I'm thinking is, maybe he got 2 wheels out on the grass, or maybe the guy behind him bumped him and he spun out, because that was really bizarre. I mean, I had no force feedback, no sound, no feeling of contact, but watching the replay again, it turns out that what had actually happened there was that the game interpolated that as contact between us, as a pit maneuver on him, and he just spun out. So my absolute apologies to Jay Bray. I mean, that was... I honestly don't know how I would do that any differently if I did it again. That was in no way communicated to me through the game, but I mean, this is one of the drawbacks of unfortunately driving on a US server when you're, well, in Australia, basically. So again, my apologies to Jay Bray, but don't worry, I'm going to get my comeuppance way sooner than you might think, so let's keep going.
On the right. Clear on the right.
Braking very, very careful as Arius, you can see, has just gone over the anti-cut way too aggressively. The rear end of the car has bounced. That rear engine Porsche, he has just lost it. So my thought here is, I mean, I am trapped. If I keep plowing forward, I'm going to hit him. If I go to the left, I'm either going to spin out or clip the front end of his car, especially if he keeps traveling. So my only recourse is to follow the McLaren onto the gravel, hope I can cut the turn and just get back on the track and go for the best. So here we go.
Clear on the right.
And no, just wasn't meant to be. Rear-ended by the Ferrari, just completely spun out. Yikes. As there's a massive disaster at T1 behind me. Arius coming up behind me there in the rear view. I'm desperately trying to rejoin without getting in anyone's way here. Now, and I'm going to have to clear this gravel as I drop a tremendous amount of positions from 5th all the way down to 21st. Absolute disaster there at T1, but I mean, my mind is set now. I've been murdered twice. I know that I have to drive super aggressively here in order to make anything happen. I have to fight my way through the midfield. Because the odds are for me, based on qualifying, that my pace is going to be a fair bit higher than most of these gentlemen in the midfield, so I need to get through this midfield as quickly as I possibly can. Luckily, the AMG lets me through. Thank you very much, R. Christmas. Good to see you again. Heading down towards Aqua Minerale with not inflated tires, always a bit of trepidation. There's our Ferrari brother just fails all the way out to the left there, unfortunately. Bit of an overcorrection, it seems. Getting to the chicane for the first time. I know things are going to get hectic really, really quickly here. Already a bit of a battle happening as Aris tries to work his way forward. Now, unfortunately for Aris, he's one of the faster guys. He doesn't really belong in the back of the field, but that anti-cut really put him here. I mean, he really put himself in this position. Now, unfortunately, the braking zone was harder than I expected. The guys overslowed. Arius kind of came in front. I just tapped him ever so slightly. No damage on either car. No safety rating penalties, so that's about as good as that could have gone. My apologies, Arius, for that. I really did try to avoid that contact. But I'm in a different mind frame now, whereas I've kind of come in very happy-go-lucky after the murdering in Quali and the murdering on T1. I have now realized that I just have to go for it. I've got to just send it every single lap. I've got so much ground to make up, and my pace is actually... Oh, as Arius just... I think he taps the McLaren there. It's hard to tell with my netcode. Unfortunately, that had a bit of contact. Now, already my pace is quicker than his, discounting the damage he would have picked up hitting that McLaren, so I need to work a way around him. That is currently the biggest goal that I have. Because neither him nor I should be here, but if his pace is slightly slower, we're going to be better off if I get in front, so... Really got to lock it down. Unfortunately, the rear end of the AMG is still giving me some troubles. Got to try and go in a little bit on the inside, but Arius shuts it down. I just didn't really have the pace for it. Aqua Minerale back to back, always fun times. Car feeling very, very understeery through there for some reason. The balance of the car is never quite what I expect. It might be the full fuel load thing. Very, very high amount of trepidation going onto the chicanwa. As I get a bad exit, unfortunately. But we'll see what we can do. My goal at this point is to get the run on him on the straight, do the overtake nice and safe, and then catch up with that train up ahead of us before we fall back too much.
I got bumped the guy in front of me.
We're coming around. The run here is important. Come on, Omen. Alright, not too bad. Not too bad. I think I got a little bit onto the gravel, which has slowed me down ever so slightly, so not a perfect exit, but pretty good all the same. We're getting the run now, we're getting the slipstreams. You can see we're starting to catch Arius. I go in on the inside, he moves into block, and I go wide. Braking hard and late here. Now I know I have the place. It's about as well as that overtake could have gone as I completely fly over the anti-cut. As you can see, that time the anti-cut, it's almost like it didn't exist. Other times you get one wheel on it and the car just shoots up like a rocket, so it's like playing Russian roulette with these curbs at Imola. As we very, very quickly catch the rest of the field here. We're very much overslowing for the hairpin. Now I've had to let off a little bit with my exit because of the Porsche. There's a lot of battling going on here, unfortunately, but it's battling at a far lower pace than we would like. As we overslow again, I go on the inside. Arius almost rear ends me. I stay on the inside. I see an opportunity. I've got the run here. I've got the run, and So this is another very interesting occurrence, like the very beginning. So when this originally happened in the race, I didn't think much of it. I just thought that he tried to rejoin. He didn't see that I was there. He bumped off my car and that was it. But I think looking at the replay in detail, the game again interpolated what wasn't contact as contact between us, as if he got pit maneuvered. I think that sent him into the side of my car and then he bounced out. So I think he was quite upset about this after the race. I didn't even know at the time. This didn't even register to me as an at-fault incident. Now, I'm going to play this back for you guys. I'm actually kind of curious what you think about it. Is it one of those gray race incident areas? Do you think the netcode was at fault? Do you think I was overly aggressive? I'm very, very curious. But I will tell you that when I was racing, I just kind of kept going. I mean, I just thought this was a race incident. I thought he made a mistake in merging onto my line when I was there. But again, one of the problems of trying to do this with such high netcodes. So this made me start to think that maybe I should rethink playing on Australian servers, especially when the racing is a little bit more serious. So as we come up to this turn again, we turn down into it, and again, I had no sound of contact there until he hit the side of my car. Certainly not when the pit maneuver happened. So to me, again, it was like, why is that car spinning out there? I didn't understand what was going on because I was very, very mindful to leave enough space. So for whatever my role in that was, El Controller, I am very, very sorry. Definitely not my intent there. But again, as I was saying at the start of this race, I am in attack mode. I have to get through this midfield. I'm basically making up for losses that I suffered due to being murdered earlier in the race. So I know I need to make up for some serious lost time here. So reasonable move as I dive bomb the inside there. Unfortunately, not much time left for me to be courteous. Ari is following me very, very closely. I think he's probably enjoying the run up the ladder that we're getting here. It gives me a chance to take a little bit of a breather as I come upon the choo-choo train up in front of me. I know it's going to take me a couple of turns to catch up to them. It's giving me a bit of a chance to reflect on the race. I'm still in full attack mode. My lines through there are actually better than they were in qualifying now, which is semi-frustrating as I gain close to a full second on T1.
There's a slow car ahead.
Get a pretty good run on the Audi. Stay on the inside. Hoping for a nice and clean overtake at the hairpin. Yep, just block him off on the inside, nice and easy. Losing minimal time for both of us. So thank you, King, for being very good with the overtake there. Now at my pace level, I'm heading to get into the top 10 as soon as I possibly can. I want a podium. I still see a potential podium in my future, though not if I keep taking Aqua Minerale like that. Unfortunately, I keep losing the car a little bit through that turn. It's just not as balanced as I would like it to be. Probably my own fault for coming in a little underprepared as we massacre that Chicanwa. That's our new meme, by the way, guys. Track limits on the Chicanwa. You know what? I'll take it for such a glorious American line. Braking hard as we catch up to the choo-choo train. We've got another Porsche in front of us. Quite a few Porsches in this one. I was expecting more people to take the AMG because it's definitely one of the better BOP'd ones for this track. But I mean, you do have to, you're locked into this car for the rest of the championship for every track, so perhaps they're just Porsche people. My personal fastest lap, a very pathetic 143.3. So unfortunately, I'm just blocked off from taking the run I want to take. Now he spins out. I think we may have freaked him out a little bit. At this point, I'm not really losing much sleep over this. Given what we've encountered in this race thus far, I've got so much room to make up for. There's no time to be a gentleman as I weave wildly to get away from the Porsche rejoining. Using downshifting to rotate the rear of the car around the hairpin there. Driving it more like you would in R-Factor. Probably not the best way to do it in ACC. You do lose disproportionate amounts of time trying to drive the car that way. So I should probably save that for the other title. Now I'm losing the rear end of the car again. I've overheated the right tires. As you can see, they're starting to yellow a bit. My traction is starting to suffer as a consequence. It's because of my own overdriving. Absolutely action-packed first half of the race. I mean, this is the most action-packed online race I've ever had. Obviously losing so many positions and knowing I have to fight my way through an entire jam-packed midfield at a track like Imola, which I personally find pretty hard to overtake on. I mean, there aren't that many places where you can do it safely. You know, the person in front of you has to be very adept at knowing how to get overtaken, which can be very difficult, especially when you throw in this amount of lag. As I go on through, not the best run out, but certainly better than the McLaren got. No time to fast forward here at all so far, guys. Like, it's just back-to-back action, no pause in any of it. It's crazy. So I try and get the slipstream again for a move, hopefully on the inside. That is the plan. But person coming out of pit lane there has forced us 3 wide for a moment. Now I take the inside. I have the inside for a very, very clean overtake into T1. I'm very, very happy with that. Happy with the line out as well. I've only lost about 0.6 maybe, leaving that turn, so not too terrible all things considered. We've got a Lamborghini to catch up ahead of us as I suffer some mid-corner understeer there. Very, very difficult line to get perfect through that S. One of my favorite parts of Imola. It's just awkward enough to unsettle you as a driver, to be challenging. This corner always very, very dangerous to overtake on, so I try and be quite sparing. It shoots you out wide at the best of times. As you can see, I'm using the curb to stabilize myself on the exit. Ideal scenario, you stay in third and maintain the speed. Braking hard into Aqua again. Pulling in, going over the anti-cut, and actually going quite well, all things considered. Maybe slipped a little bit too much after the car landed, but that's life. It's all good. Going into the chicane as aggressively as always. Getting a reasonably good exit on the inside. Now that sent the Lamborghini wide over the anti-cut. He's lost a lot of time over that curbing, giving us a very, very clean overtake near the end here. So I'm pretty dialed in. I'm in the zone at this point. I know what I need to do, and I'm just keen to do it. I need to get into the top 10. With Mike Evans here, he's dropped behind. Unfortunately, he seems to have had a bit of a mishap. I'm guessing T1 probably wasn't as kind to him as it was to me. The rules in this league, of course, being that somebody being blue flag just has to hold their line and not block. So just let the person overtake you, but otherwise, don't block. He very, very, very nicely lets me through on the inside here. It was well within his rights to cut across. That's what I was actually preparing for. It's why I overslowed. So thank you, Mike. Really appreciate that. Now, our first bit of breathing room in the entire race so far. I'm thinking, okay, 3 seconds to Connell in front of us. And just pace myself, double down, get into the groove of racing Imola. Let's try and get into the 142s, which is where my pace should be. I should be in the mid 142s every single lap. But I've just been flustered. There's been so much traffic. There's been so much to deal with. You know, me overheating my tires due to all of this crazy sliding as well. But you do what you can. I'm just hoping for no slips and slides at Aqua. So far, so good. Unfortunately, a little bit of understeer going in there. And the anti-cut wasn't kind to us that time. Again, losing out on the game of Russian roulette that time. Using the curbing for a maximum entrance into chicane. Now really bad bounces on both. I'm not really sure why. I've done way more aggressive takes before. Again, the game of Russian roulette here at ACC. It's one of the reasons I like driving the GT4s here. They're way kinder to that curbing. As I continue to understeer, unfortunately. I'm trying to work out what it is that's going on with the car, but I'm definitely suffering from understeer. I'm starting to think that maybe the damage I had suffered earlier in the race has damaged my splitter. Because I'm definitely suffering from, I guess, low grip on the front axle. Low aero, something to that effect anyway. I know I need to slow down my run, so I know that low 143s are probably the best I can hope for under the circumstances. As I struggle to turn into T1 again, shooting out wide, I'm having to lift the throttle. Normally it's completely flat out through there. Still catching Sturdivant.
Car on the right. Clear on the right.
We're coming up to Connell now because he's been slowed down a little bit. He's got some rear damage. I don't think he got away unscathed either. We've all had a pretty rough run so far. As I suffer from tremendous understeer through the hairpin. Now I know I've got the run. I'm too close not to make a move here, but I hate making a move on this turn. I absolutely loathe it. I brake in a sensible location. I keep the inside blocked off, but I don't really move in in a way such to compromise his line too much. I really didn't want to shoot out wide and collect him on the outside, but I had to make that move. I have no time left to lose. I mean, I'm losing the tires more and more each lap. I'm finally back to 9th position. Now we started off 5th, trying to make my way back up to 5th. The field is spreading out more and more as the, I suppose, more capable drivers have done their thing here, created a gap between one another, less trains forming. As a result, I know my work is cut out for me. As we get our first ever chance in the race to actually fast forward, hallelujah. You don't have to sit through an entire 50-minute race, guys. There's really not much to see here, just me trying to consolidate my lines, trying to make up as much of the gap as I possibly can. Things could have gone better, both in regards to the times I got punted and in regards to the times that I experienced those netcode mishaps. As we're coming in for one of our best laps thus far into the mid to high 142s, where arguably my pace should be every single lap, as I massacre the chicane with no track limits warning at all, right? So work that out for me, guys. Work out how I got a track limits warning earlier and how that was completely fine. How does that make any sense? Anyway, not like I'm complaining. It was a hell of a run. Alright, we use the curb on the outside to stabilize the rear end of the car as we're coming into what should be the quickest lap that we've done thus far. A nice 142.6. Not awful, not awful. If I could keep the pace there for every single lap, I think I'd have a chance of getting back to the podium. Pretty decent run through there, catching just enough of the anti-cut to rotate the car, but not to unsettle it. I was really happy with that run through T1 there, obviously gaining a 10th already. Headed for the mid 142s. Oh, bad bounce, and it's just shot us out wide onto the gravel. Fortunately, the gravel actually helped us there. It stabilized the rear of the car, let me power out and keep going. I've lost about a half second, but that could have been way more disastrous than it was. As we've made up about halfway towards Jay Thompson here, so 1.5 seconds behind. Sharing the exact same paint job as him, no less, a man of very fine and exquisite taste. Now, around about this point in the race, something very peculiar started to happen. I noticed a shape forming on the screen in front of me. So this is the very first competitive race I've done with my new RTX 3080, powering a 55-inch OLED TV, which, let me tell you, looks absolutely amazing in ACC. The problem I ran into is that shape was actually a spider making its way down from the ceiling on its web, basically hanging directly between me and the monitor, just enough to completely throw off my depth perception as my eyes kept focusing on the spider dangling left to right rather than the apexes, and I swear a few times it quite literally went in front of the apexes. So this is really me practicing my mental fortitude. So we've got a pretty reasonable exit through there coming into the hairpin. I know I'm probably going to make the move on this lap. I'm getting very close, half a second away. It's just a matter of time. It's my own fault that I haven't made the move already. I mean, I've made a few simple mistakes leading up to this point. Having to downshift again for stability. The dirty air coming off that massive AMG's rear wing really messed with my understeer there. And again, massive understeer due to the aero wash. The aero improvements in ACC, very welcome. The yaw aero improvements. Kind of lose more downforce when you're cornering. It's very awesome. Something I wish we would see implemented in R Factor, hopefully this year. That'd be amazing. Okay, I've managed to maintain that half a second gap despite my very woeful lap here. The rightmost side of the car tires have really just fired up. The leftmost side are probably underinflated, all things considered. If I could bring them up to the same PSI as the right side, that'd be ideal. In testing, the pressures were completely equalized. I dropped the pressures on the right side an absolute ton, but they've still caught up because obviously Imola is a counterclockwise track, so you load the outside tires way more. As he has a moment there, he overcorrects, loses a lot of time coming into Aqua. Give me a chance to catch up as he goes way wide. I go wide too. I try not to let the rejoin happen into the front of my car. So I move in, take my line, half take my line to not cause a crash in case there's any more netcode issues. And all things considered, that exit went about as well as it possibly could have.
Penalty? I thought I'd just stop and then
Go
go
halfway
again.
through. Don't go yet.
You have to go through the pit.
That was stupid of me.
Someone there working out how to do a stop and go penalty
Thanks,
for the
man.
first time. I feel you. I learned about a lot of these conventions doing
sure
my
to stop
first
in your
competitive
box,
race
too.
not that long ago, so. And as we go into the pits, braking at the line there, braking a little bit too early, I would say, as we hit the pit limiter. I wanted to make sure that we did it. I didn't want to drive through penalty. I didn't want to stop and go or a DQ. Now, pit stopping has been one of my Achilles heels in ACC in the past. I find the process somewhat counterintuitive, but I'm going to try and do it. Pull in at the exact point they want me to pull in, go down into neutral, and then kill the engine, which I do promptly right now. But then the engine starts up again, and I'm like, what? What? Lose a couple more seconds, kill the engine, wait for no reason, and then they start working on the car. So, you know, yeah, ACC is starting to grow on me. I think you guys see that. I'm starting to respect a lot of things about it. Pit stops are not one of those things. I think this honestly, it just requires a little bit of tweaking work. I know it requires some work on my end to work out what methodology it wants me to use, but it feels way too rigid and regimented in regards to where you have to stop. I mean, in real life, the pit crew will just work on the car even if you're like half hanging out the garage. So as I try and start the engine before they drop me down, nothing happens. So I have to wait for the guy to manually start the engine as we go out. So I've easily lost, I reckon, about 5 seconds there, if not more, that I shouldn't have lost on account of the pit stop. Still way better than the Spa race though, so I can't complain about that. I love the way the AMG thumps off the limiter. It's so insane. It must feel amazing, just like throwing up everywhere in the car. Dropping the pit limiter on the exit. Luckily no blue flags, nobody coming up really quickly on us. A lot of people in the pits, so we're probably sharing the same race strategy that a lot of guys are in this race. Half a fuel load each way because it was a mandatory pit stop for a tire change, which I'm very grateful for right now. I'm grateful for the fact that they've probably sorted out my front splitter now as well. The car so much more stable, as you can see, even with the underinflated tires. It's not even, you can't even compare it to what I was driving into the pits. I'd completely burned up those tires. I mean, they would have blistered all over. And soon these will too if I continue driving around the hairpin like that, but bad habit from our factor, I guess. Or is it a good habit? I don't know. What do you think? Nice and slow through there, knowing that understeer was going to catch me, as it did. I mean, I overslowed there and I still got the massive understeer. So obviously not that used to driving the AMG with a fuel load this big. The car just carries and carries and carries. I can't maintain any of my regular speed through Aqua. I completely mess up there, so I can tell you what happened. I changed the engine map as opposed to changing the TC. I wanted to change the TC back down to 3 because I felt like I finally had the grip back to put the power down. But I recently rebound my switches on the wheel and I pressed the wrong thing, sending myself into the wrong ECU map, which was a slight disaster given where I was. Live and learn, right? Oh, as I overcorrect, get onto the gravel. Let's pretend that outlap didn't exist. Let's just get back on track. What I'm thinking, I'm just laughing to myself at this point going, look, you've really got to dial it in right here, man, because you're not doing yourself any favors. Just dial it in. Catch the next guy up. He's about 9 seconds ahead. You have a few laps ahead of you to do this, so just knuckle down, mate. You're going to catch a lot of places in the pits, so just make it happen. As we start to approach the first of the second stint wave of backmarkers. Luckily, Connell is heading into the pits there. I didn't have to go for any kind of a crazy move on the straight. I'm really, really happy with that run. I finally feel like I've hit my groove with T1. That's usually how I do it offline. When I'm not flustered, when I'm not thinking about a million things, including a spider dangling in front of my face as I try to focus on the apexes. Now, unfortunately, the anti-cut bounce, murdering me yet again. Luckily, we're still ahead, but somewhat frustrating, I've got to say. Knowing that I was capable of far better pace than that, and I wonder what kind of a run I would have gotten on the Porsche here. Either way, I probably would have lost the gap that had developed there.
Car on the right. Clear on the right. Car on the right. Clear on the right.
Nice of him to move over this time. For those who remember, Culé is the one who murdered us in quali. No hard feelings, mate, but that was pretty epic. I have a feeling it would have been a very, very different race had that not happened. Maybe not for the best. I mean, it's certainly far more exciting this way, I think. It's an interesting one when you know you have the pace to take pole position in qualifying and then subsequently follow it up with a win in the race itself. To end up in this position mercilessly just battling the midfield, that's kind of cool. I almost don't regret that it happened. Oh no, it's like I overcooked that so bad. It was easily going to be the best lap of our second stint, but I just can't stop myself from binning things this time as I get choked up in the gears. So this is, I have to say, the second stint here was just not my best work. For some reason, I lost my flow, I got flustered. I think that spider dangling in front of my face really got to me. The fact that I knew that the podium was probably out of my reach now, that I was just dangling in 10th place, just really not making up any ground. I keep thinking to myself, there's just no time to mess around. I went into that mindset that I was in when I was in the N24 race in the Porsche GT3 racing against the Porsche Cup cars. When they hold you up in Sector 2 of the Nordschleife, I mean, they can ruin your race. There's just... I mean, alright, fair, I'll take those track limits, but I mean, that was fun. I'd do it again. I'll totally take that again. Oh, really bad bounce over the old Chicanwa. Sturdivant has a very, very bad off there. Rejoins, but without the pace. I'm guessing he's got a lot of gravel on those slicks right now. It's probably going to cause havoc for him. Yeah, he's already counter-steering, already correcting. As he cuts in here, I was wondering whether he was going to give me the inside for that turn there. He opts to just kind of let off here instead, which I'm very thankful for. So unfortunately, we've not made up any ground on street because of that, but it's a new lap. Anything's possible. As we bounce very badly yet again, and very badly yet again, but without losing too much time because I kind of launched the car in the correct general direction. I'm way too aggressive with those curves because I drive this track on R-Factor and it just doesn't do that sort of thing. That sort of thing, you know. The interesting broken bounce as my splitter hits the anti-cut. I wonder what will happen if they model undercarriage damage. I feel like we would drive this track very differently and suddenly that 720S, the 488, the Audi would become far more viable on this track again. That anti-cut is of course your worst nightmare on that turn. It already wants to understeer, but like if you grab that, it will just shoot the car out wide. Aqua giving me a bit of oversteer on corner entry. Bit of understeer on mid-corner and an okay, fairly neutral exit if you grab the curb correctly. As you can see reflected in us gaining some time for the first time in a long while. Trying to maximize the curbing here. Go over the Chicanwa with maximum passion.
Car on the left.
We're doing an American line on an Italian track in a German car, where it's truly a global event. Really, really off pace for me. Usually I'd normally expect to be very solidly in the 142s, but I've very clearly been flustered by this experience. The 3080 though was holding this down amazingly well. I've got to say, racing without slowdowns, max settings at 1440p while recording this footage, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I can even run offline 4K races. Now we're finally within spitting distance of the guys in front of us. It's been a long route to get here. You would think with new tires, the aero damage on the car fixed that, you know, I'd be driving quicker than this. But unfortunately, I'm not really doing the pace of my life right now, and I'm just trying to make do. As Christmas gets a lot of flags waved at him, decides to let us through on the inside. Very much appreciated. Sorry for that bad bounce, my man. So, you never know what you're going to get with the anti-cut, especially when you hit it that aggressively. Sometimes you can get a perfect line. It'll be like the best hot lap of your life, but it'll only succeed 1 out of every 10 times.
Is it drivable with no force feedback?
We'll see.
Luca there losing force feedback yet again. Somewhere up in the podium positions, where he justly belongs. where once upon a time, I thought I belonged. So we're gradually making up some time on street, even in spite of my less than inspirational lap times. I'm trying to at least keep it consistent, even for the relatively banal level that I'm at right now. A lot of mid-corner understeer there. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm used to the car rotating way more than that. I may need to stiffen the rear suspension. What else? I mean, maybe an extra point on the splitter. It's possible that they're mid-speed corners that I'm lacking the rotation, but I was kind of lacking it on the hairpin as well, wasn't I? So I feel like 1 point harder rear suspension, or maybe, maybe a stiffer rear sway bar? Maybe? Still, the car gets so much oversteer in other moments, it's hard. It'd be very hard to balance it out. Now, I think the oversteer rather is being caused due to the very high track temperature rather than the car setup, so at the very least, our tyre pressures have managed to equate here on the straight perfectly at 27.6. It's brilliant to see that. And I know I can finally start to think about making moves on the Audi. And think about catching Stokes in front of him. I have very little time to waste here.
Car on the right.
Let's stay on the inside for a relatively clean overtake there. Thank you, Street. Unfortunately, we've got to keep making our way onwards and upwards, as it were. As I continue to lose time at the hairpin there, unfortunately. The car just isn't rotating as it should, so I think I consistently lose about 2 to 3 tenths through there, if not more, on account of the lack of rotation. So I think I may have to dynamically either alter my brake bias or the traction control when I go through there. I've yet to work out which one's better to alter. In the AMG, possibly the traction control. So not the worst run through Aqua, but I'm certainly not in the mid 142 benchmark I should be at, so I'm about half second off pace as I go into that way too aggressively. This isn't the kind of pace that will get you into the podium position, Zerman. As we start to get into the final portion of the race, only 7 minutes left, I think I'm realizing at this point that due to a collection of errors, mishaps, and just continually mediocre driving on my part, I will very likely not see the podium. But if I can get top 5, that's something, so we'll go for it. We'll see what we can get. As the Audi drops behind us, his lap being a full 2 seconds slower. Counteracting some of that mid-corner understeer by grabbing the anti-cut just with a portion of the tyre, getting it to rotate the car in. That's the key there. That's how you can maintain flat out. So we brake hard, coming up to 3 back markers in a row. I know my life is going to get very, very interesting coming up here. All right, one's out of the way. Very fortunately, taking himself out of the running very, very late into the race for some reason. Oh, it's Bray. Yeah, so to that effect, I'm sorry for my part in all of that, Bray. I don't know how far you dropped back. I don't know if you dropped back even further than I did when I got subsequently punted. I'm so sorry for my involvement in that little accident between us. I really don't know how to safeguard the netcode from that happening again. I think I'm starting to consider that maybe my best recourse is to just drop out of the championship and not take part in an American championship again.
Clear on the left.
Oh, as we catch too much of the inside curb trying to cut that line. Almost spun the car there. Fortunately, the setup is very, very stable. It's one of the benefits of having an understeery setup. You may be slower per lap, but you're going to be more consistent and less prone to crashing. As we understeer like crazy through Aqua again, losing a lot of our pace up and out of the dip there. I know that there's not much of a chance left to make moves at this point. I've just got to stay with it. Hope I can at least catch 6th if Lady Luck shines on us. We've got maybe 2 laps left in the race, or 3.
On the left. Clear on the left.
Porsche very nicely letting us through. Thank you, Connell.
Yellow flag in sector 3.
We're not entirely on the same pace as the guys in the top 6, unfortunately.
On the left. Clear
I'm
on the
finding it
left.
very, very difficult to close that 8-second gap. Still, lines like this will help a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's better than what I have been doing.
On Stokes.
Rotating like crazy. The full R-factor line through the hairpin there. The trail brake in, unsettle the rear of the car, then maintain the slide with the throttle. Something I would see
get it
you
back,
essentially
you know.
doing in real life through a corner like that. It just seems like the most efficient way to drive a car in a complex like that. Us getting a pretty good exit out of there coming into Aqua. If we can get another lap in the 142s, that'd be quite welcome. As I try to defeat the understeer with everything at my disposal. Now I think that was a bit sus. That was a bit wide by ACC standards. Are we going to get a track limits violation? No track limits violation, and that cut there was easily worse than what I did in qualifying off camera and disqualified a lap for. So very, very inconsistent, the track limits sometimes. As we come down to what is hopefully one of our first 142s in the second stint. Unbelievable that I had such better pace on old tires. As I throw away a couple of hundredths there. As long as we can stay in the 142 bracket, that's at least something. So we've closed the gap quite a lot. We've got Schlieder coming up in 6th position, only 3 seconds away. The way I figure it, I've got another 2 laps left here. I've really got to make him count. Really, really good entrance through T1 there. Already up 2/10. Trying to maintain it through here. Didn't bounce too bad. Didn't bounce, bounced pretty bad there. Unfortunately, we lost all of our gain. Again, Russian roulette. You gamble and sometimes you lose. As I sway wildly there, so you could basically use your imagination. I was seesawing that wheel like a maniac, trying to get the car to exit correctly. Haven't dropped as much pace as I thought I might. As we push through again, trying to maintain our pace. Nice rotation through Aqua finally. Still not the best exit. I'm easily losing tenths on Aqua because I'm just not able to take it correctly. Could be a car setup thing, could be a skill thing, could be all manner of things. As I gain 2 whole tenths on the chicane. That's what the chicane was for, guys. That's why you take a lumbering beast like the AMG. You can just go over curbing. You don't have to worry about it like in the 488. As much as I do love the 488, it's a very difficult car to drive for pace in ACC.
I just set the fastest lap of the race.
As we come up to what's
you know the
our
secret.
second 142 of the second stint.
Going back to side 1.
So I'm realizing at this point the only position I have left to gain here is this one ahead of me, 6th. I don't know if I'm going to go for it or be content to just finish the race in one piece at this point, but we'll see. I'm basically leaving it up to chance. Let's see if he makes any mistakes. Let's see how much time we gain. I'm so tired of the bad bounces mid-corner through the S there. As we get an okay exit, all things considered. Not mind-blowing, but okay. Trying to get as much of the slipstream as we can from that very, very wide Porsche. Braking nice and late and downshifting to maintain and counter-steering like a maniac there to keep the car on the road. Braking super hard here at Aqua, trying to maintain the rotation again. Yes, a bit too much rotation, but that's fine. Unfortunately, we're losing pace here. We're not gaining as much as I'd hoped to, but it's not like you can really overtake in this location anyway. Now he's really overslowed for the chicane. He's really lost a lot of pace there. His exit wasn't that phenomenal either, so this is my chance if it's ever going to happen anywhere. And this is probably my proudest move of the entire race. I go, fake on the inside, come back in, brake hard. He shoots out wide because he freaks out. He goes offline early to block me. Takes him off the track, and I secure myself 6th place. And that's that, guys.
Good job. You did the best you could.
11 bonus trust for finishing the race. I mean, that's good. My safety rating, the net effect is that it's gone up rather than down, which is good, especially given the amount of punting that happens. At the end of the race, Cachola was a little bit upset about the scuffle that we had coming into Aqua on lap 2. Unfortunately, the one that's, I mean, quite earnestly was caused by the netcode, because I don't understand how contact was interpreted between us there. But again, I'm curious what you guys think about that situation. I think in order to circumvent these problems in the future on the more competitive races, I should probably just avoid the US servers, because I don't see myself wanting to adopt a more passive driving style. I was working my way through the midfield. I think if I were to do that situation again, I would probably do it the same way. I would do the incident at T1 exactly the same way. I mean, I always try to error correct, but I think the only way I can error correct here is by playing on servers that essentially have better ping to me. So, you know, whether or not I take part in this league again, the jury's still out on that. My apologies to all the guys that I had contact with, the guys that hit me, as well as the guys that I hit, or the mutual contacts. That's never a good part of racing, and it's never something that you want to see, but it makes for very exciting viewing, doesn't it, guys? So I hope you enjoyed that race. Definitely the most eventful race, and probably some of my best achievements in terms of raw overtakes in the first stints of that race. So with that in mind, be sure to hit the sub to catch future ACC content, as well as many more of these races in the future, probably on my own community on simracing.gp. If you want to join us for those, instructions are down below. Just take the link, sign up, and we'll invite you guys. And until next time, we'll see you later.